The algorithm on YouTube suggested to me a video made by a former or current, I'm not sure if he was former or current CIA agent. And it was very interesting for me as somebody who's embroiled in an Epstein-like CIA plot. When I say Epstein-like, I mean the formula of the real function of what's going on is for a higher intelligence purpose. And extremely wealthy private citizens are used to obfuscate the real goals of the operation. In that sense, it is identical to the Epstein plot. The goals are different. What I can intuit the goals are to control their middling workers who are not as bright or as cult-like political as the Epstein marks. The Epstein marks were less cult-like political and brighter. The people who were marks for my plot are not as bright on average and extremely cult-like politically, which is why the strategy is a little different in the sense, though that formula is the same, using a very high up intelligence asset who is a wealthy private citizen to fund an operation with real intelligence goals. Other than that, the structure is different in the sense with my plots, the marks were explicitly told CIA is involved. It's just they were told the mark is me. They were told this was all a spontaneous revenge plot. And a private wealthy citizen is going to funnel 1/6 of $1 billion into it just for amusement. Whereas with Epstein, that was similar in that a very wealthy private citizen who was a high up intelligence asset funneled a similar amount of money into Epstein, but it was under the pretense you're being paid for consulting fees, and that is what he then told the marks. Like they hid completely intelligence links because the MIT marks would have figured out, oh, I must be the mark. Like if they tried to tell the MIT marks, hey, guess what? I'm funded by a CIA connected billionaire, and we're going to do whatever we want to these girls. The MIT people would be smart enough to know there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way a CIA connected billionaire just wants to like rape girls and is using CIA for that. Like it must be about me, controlling me to do stuff for broader social intelligence functions. But these people, because they're cult like and not as bright, they literally believed that. They literally believed a private billionaire who is high up in the CIA, likely KGB too, considering he was born in the USSR, possibly Mossad, but definitely the KGB and CIA both. They believed this private billionaire was willing to spend 1/6 of $1 billion to torture a mentally ill girl. They believed that because they're so cult-like from their political partisan vulnerability, plus they're not as bright as MIT people. So they believe that explanation. As absurd as if Epstein was going to MIT people being like, guess what? My funder Wexler, he's so rich and he also has connections to Mossad and CIA. And he's giving me $150 million to do whatever I want to girls. Like, you want to come? They'd be like, this is definitely some kind of trap for me. But these people, because they're in a cult already, they're extreme progressive politics, and they're more conformist and not as bright. They believed that. They believed it made sense that they just randomly found a mentally ill girl on Fucked Company, and they just spontaneously decided to leverage their CIA tools and connections and 1/6 of $1 billion to torture her. And they didn't realize controlling us is why this is being done, getting us to help them build a criminal network all over the country and across countries. It's literally identical to how they built ISIS. ISIS, as you know, is an intelligence ops. Like, and how they built ISIS is identical to how they built my cult. in the sense they recruited online. They went into different spaces with radical, disenfranchised, desperate people, and they tried to recruit them into Islamic nationalism. And it's similar to how they built my cults, using me as a prop. They went to different Discord servers where like sociopathic middle class whiners exist. Almost certainly they went to poor enclaves and they were like, hey, did you know the Illuminati is real and they're paying to like attack bad people? And that's how they built Mike. It's the same way as they built ISIS in that they had real agents go and recruit people into this group that's existing. And ultimately, the goals are to channel that progressive sentiment that will be problematic and turn it into a cult that is serving the oppressors. And that is what my plot was about, too. Like, take people who are malcontent from what the billionaire class has done to them, people in welfare offices, people on SNAP, people like mentally unwell, middle class, progressive kids who are mad at their dad. Take people who are malcontent for whatever reason, but especially people with progressive sentiment that would ordinarily be channeled against billionaires and turn billionaires into heroes getting bad people. Very similar to ISIS in the sense, take people who would ordinarily be against the West. They have Islamic nationalist sentiment, but funnel them into a group the West billionaires control, get them to mostly orient their ire to raping children who are Christian. The Yazidis target them. I'm like the Yazidis in that sense. And have them be unwitting tools to serve the West. As the leaders of this group will always orient them in a direction that defies any Islamic nationalist goals, targets the weak and vulnerable, like Christian children in Syria and Iraq and shit, and becomes now an asset that helps something like Israel, the elites of Israel. Because you just channeled, absorbed, and funneled Islamic nationalists who could have been recruited to these real groups controlled by Iran and Russia against Israel. And now they're in your group and you're like raping kids in Iraq and shit. You're like raping Yazidi children instead of plotting to do some shit to Israel, right? That's why that was done. And that, like, if ISIS is to channeling and controlling to make it a tool of the elites of the West, Islamic nationalists, my plot is to channeling, controlling, and making a tool of the elites of the West, progressive sentiments. Let's put it like that. And it has the structure of the plot is more like ISIS, but the raw mechanics of how they did it was more like Epstein in the sense use a private billionaire to fund the thing, several private billionaires who are actually intelligence assets, and the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing, and the orbiters around intelligence and the people who are not in the intelligence community will literally believe the explanation. This is just revenge. Anyway, I went into the structure reverse engineering my plot and how it's actually a combination of Epstein and ISIS in that it serves very much a broader social goal. It's clearly an intelligence op against them. They think it's against me, just like the people in ISIS think it's against the Yazidis, or the people who were marks of Epstein thought Wexler was just funding him for consulting fees, and just like they think Sergey Brin just decided to take revenge on me. They don't see, because they're marks, and they are where they are for who they are. Their inability to figure anything out, which is why they had to use a different strategy with Epstein. They had to hide from the MIT people, the intelligence links. But these people are so cult-like, so conformist, they could tell them, and they still would not figure it out, that you were the marks to help them do something horrible, channel progressive sentiment, so it's a tool of the oppressors. As if when making ISIS, they went to people in real Islamic nationalist groups who really care about this, and they were like, a Western billionaire feels like getting revenge by making their own Islamic nationalist. And rather than them figure out we're the marks, they're trying to destroy our movement, They're going to make a group they control to channel what we're about so it serves them and destroys our goals rather than them figure that out because they're so called like they're that's awesome because I like Islamic nationalism like fools like that's like these people thinking billionaire wanted to make progressive equity justice movement that involved raping one woman and blowing over everybody not violent and weird and making them devoted ultimately to the oppressors. And they believe this was some form of equity and justice because they used the words equity and justice apparently. And they couldn't see the long game that you're the marks, just like the people are. And they're making an ISIS-like call for progressive sentiment that will ultimately be function more like a secret police for the oppressors. But they'll be in their delusion, equity, justice, Jesus is helping me. I was online at the welfare office, now I'm not. And they won't get it. Like, they literally sabotaged the progressive movement in a lot of ways using you people. And you exist for no reason but to one, control and absorb malcontents who would be progressives, who would join a socialist revolution, and turn them into secret police of the oppressors. And blowing over and sabotaging the many, many more pro social pores who will not do this. Much in the way making ISIS was to absorb the Islamic radicals, turn them into a tool of the Western elites. They no longer are working against Israel, but in unwitting assets. And attacking some random children with rape was used to control their malcontent with their Islamic nationalist sentiment. Feel like they're getting shit done. And the whole while they don't know their tools controlled by the West to destroy Islamic nationalism to help Israel and the West succeed. Same thing in that sense. Epstein like when it comes to how it was funded, ISIS like when it comes to the actual mechanics and what it does. Take a group of malcontents who are ordinarily antagonistic of Western elites, turn them into your assets through mind control, and rewarding violent random destruction against false targets. The whole while they're destroying their movement. They don't even know it. And another similarity between ISIS and my plot is though ISIS and my plot were meant to absorb specific people, ISIS, Islamic nationalists, my plot, malcontent progressives, because of the nature of rewarding violence and degeneracy to become an asset of Western elites destroying your movement, a lot of the people who joined both my plot and ISIS really don't care about the values. So what we saw with ISIS, and they can confirm this, a lot of people who were just violent rapists who don't really care about Islamic nationalism were joining up. And the same thing is true in my plot. A lot of people who are Trumpers and regressives and they hate queers and they have their own regressive values joined my plot simply because they were so down for rape and torture and getting paid for it. That was also the same. So even though the function of the plot is to control this sentiment that would normally be against the elites of the West, because of the nature of it, to destroy that movement, thus requiring pointless violence that they control, it ends up absorbing just frank sociopaths. Like in ISIS, people were joining who didn't care about Islamic nationalists as long as they get to rape women and like steal girls. Same thing in my plot. Like so many Trump fans are in this. So many people who hate fags and queers. Like I look like I am more progressive than the average person attacking me. Real talk, right? And you saw the same thing in ISIS in the sense. People not in ISIS were much more devout Muslims. But because it was an intelligence ops to reward degenerates, just random criminals who were online, malcontents and violent, they were like, do you want to join ISIS and get a free girl? They were like, yeah. And they don't care or know anything about Islam. That's also similar. And that helps intelligence because when people see this, like they see that you're representing Islamic nationalism, and everyone can clearly see it's just random antisocial criminal degenerates who have no real devotion to Islam. They just joined up because it's like I get to rape girls and do violence and kill people. That makes the movement look like shit. And it also makes the people who did kind of care more shit as well through your influence of the degenerates, right? And the same thing is true in my plot, in the sense, yeah, there's a percent of like, my dad watches Fox News. I was on Discord because he keeps misgendering me. Oh my God. Space cadet, middle class, white kid, right? And the agents come and they recruit them and they actually care about this shit. But simply by being adjacent to the people who are like, as long as they get to rape, kill, play with shit, murder things for money, I don't like fags myself. I truly do not like fags. Like, that person being near that person makes the other person more immoral and also makes everyone looking at them like progressives are just a bunch of violent criminals. Like, look what they're doing. Like, for real. Like, because the influence of that degenerate criminal being the face of your movement repels everyone. That's related to something like Continental Pro in the 70s. Like, the agents would come in, infiltrate progressive groups, and be like, you want to just randomly break cars, blow shit up, beat people up, punch them, and the ones who are more prone to antisocial behavior started behaving that way. And everyone witnessing the movement and anything about it was like, ugh, I don't want anything to do with them. And then the ones who are less like that, who care more ethics about their movement, become worse being near that person too. It does a double function of making it look repulsive to people outside of your views and weakening the moral and ethical fortitude of the ones who do care. And that's not an accident. That there was a huge burden of criminal trash in both ISIS and my movement, where it's like, what the fuck is Allah? Give me the girls. You know what I mean? And my movement, like, I'm voting for Trump, pay me to rape. You know what I mean? Deliberate. It makes the movement look like gross shit. Because that's what they want to do, is destroy the movement ultimately. And weakens the ethical goals of the people who do care. And just Continental pros it into a ditch. And you're just raping Yazidis or raping random women, in my case. And you really think you're getting shit done. So the structure of my plot, including recruiting online, including have a large mass of people who don't care about the movement, is down for. I got that Simpsons episodes when they were at the police academy. The guy screaming, "Give me the fucking gun!" And the police chief so inept, he's like, You're a bad recruit." He's just like, "Wait a second, I'll give you that later." Except these people are recruiting people like that on purpose to make the movement look like trash. It's not incompetence. It's deliberate malice. They hate your movement. I don't think. I think you need to figure this out. Progressives do not care about. In fact, progressivism is their enemy. Really, I want you people to reverse engineer this. You think Sergey Brin, born in the USSR, known links to the CIA. You think he wants to make a progressive world because he called his company "Do No Evil," but you can clearly see he's doing evil. But you're such a cult member, you didn't think that was evil. You think he wants to further your progressive movement and values? Or do you think it's more likely he's a high up intelligence officer? By the way, I'm going to get into how I saw this CIA agent and a lot of things I could figure out. The highest level members of the intelligence community are completely intertwined with the billionaires. You know that, right? Like, the lower funders are controlled by those people. They roll like a cult. And your inability to figure out what they really, really want you to do is an asset for the CIA agent. But anyway, what sense does it make? The enemy of progressivism, everything they do is to thwart progressivism, suddenly wants to pay you 1/6 of $1 billion to recruit anyone down for rape or justice. Doesn't that sound like ISIS to you? Including recruiting online, including your group activities centering around raping random girls? Doesn't that seem like Epstein to you? Same way, the highest members of the intelligence community, with their masters, the billionaires, funneled $150 million to Epstein under a false pretense. In my case, revenge. In his case, financial consulting fees for a real organized ops, a honeypot trap for MIT people. And in your case, the cult-like progressives that are shitting up the companies that they put there, because they're in a cult politically and easy to control and fool, control you all to build a movement that will help destroy progressivism. What is the odds that that's more likely than no? They just felt like spending. He just had to have CIA links. He just felt like spending the same amount of money to make the Epstein plot get you. Fools. I can literally prove that's not what happened. Like I was with the higher level intelligence agents screened me. They knew who I was and directed me to you. You know that, right? Yeah. So background. I was watching some dude who worked for the CIA, and a lot of shit I could figure out just by being near these orbiters. He confirmed an ideal recruit for the agency is a narcissist. Right? I could see that. Like these people seek validation from a group, like cult like, right? Like they're blank slates, and the only source of validation, they have no internal ethics. They don't march to their own beats. All of their ethics must come from an outside source that they replace with CIA brainwashing. These are like low level to middling level agents. I fully believe the highest level agents are completely wedded to the billionaires and they know their job. The highest level agents in the organization, their job is to brainwash and control the lower level agents. It's like this almost nesting doll, Russian nesting doll. Yeah, Trushka doll, I think it's called, where the lowest level agents think they're free and serving an organization, but they're the most cult like of all. And they don't know what the fuck is up. And the higher level agents that contain them, their job is to control the agents. And they're completely wedded to the elites, the satanic occult billionaire elites. And so it's almost like the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing. Just as much as the marks of the lower level agents are being deceived by the lower level agents, the lower level agents are also being deceived. And they don't know it because the whole identity becomes the CIA. I had seen they operate like a cult, like the way they scream at me that I'm a Christian. Clearly, they're wedded to some Satanist ideology. And I'm looking at them like, you're calling me a cult member in a religion, but everything you do is a witless member of a group. And this dude confirmed that. He's like, you might say a lot of how the CIA operates is like a cult, and you are right. They look for somebody who's a blank slate, who has flexible ethics and morals that can be then replaced with the values of the CIA. They have such cult-like catchphrases, like a coin where one side says motivation, the other side says manipulation, and that makes sense to them. Like they're so cult-like, they can accept these values being told to them, like motivation and manipulation are the same thing because they require the same skills. Which is like saying, being somebody who's a serial killer and amputates a leg for malice is just like a surgeon amputating a leg to save a life. And you believe that makes sense to you because they're in a cult. They're a blank slate that the CIA is programming, just like any cult. They start to get inspired by these Scientology, like Jehovah's Witness nut job values. Like, oh yeah, they showed me the coin where one side said motivation, the other side said manipulation. It just insight, what you do doesn't matter, same skills needed. It's like, if I showed you a coin where one side said serial killer, the other side said surgeon, would you be like, oh, you need surgical skills for both? Like, another saying they have is agency first, family always. Like fucking Fight Club. And that like inspires them. And a lot of the things I could intuit, like they look for narcissists. Like these people are empty, hollow. Their entire reason to be is validation of the group. And he confirmed, yeah, that's what we look for in an agent. He also said something I found very interesting, that they look for racially ambiguous people. So, the stereotype CIA agents are like white Protestants has not been true for a while. They look for racially ambiguous people. And he said it's because they can blend in anywhere. I can see that. Like the guy that was talking was racially ambiguous. Like you could look at his face, you could be like, they could cut your hair and you'd look like a white person. You could change a little bit and you'd fit in with the African American community. They could change you and you'd fit in with the Middle Eastern community. Like you could see that. But another vibe I'm getting by his own admission, he was talking about how his whole life he had malcontent with society, how his family, and I think another reason they seek out racially ambiguous people is the Sean King effect. I'm going to call this the Sean King effect. When Sean King was a thing, I clocked this about him. He is projecting family dynamics onto society. Meaning, let me just examine Sean King for a second. Sean King, we all know, he became a mockery, Talcum X, blah, blah, blah. Sean King is a dude who has a discordant family. His story is he's the illegitimate child in his family, meaning his mom had some kind of affair with like a light skinned black dude. When Sean King was born, he was claimed to be the son of his father, but everyone knew it wasn't true in his family. You know, he looks different than the rest of his family. He looks mostly like a white dude, but you can look at him and say, yeah, he does have African American features, right? People mocked him and called him Talcum X as he was pretending to be black, but no, I really do think that story is true that he told everyone that my dad's not my real dad. My mom cheated on my dad with a black dude or like a biracial dude, and I never fit in. See, here's the thing. If Sean King came from a loving family where his dad was black and his mom was white, he wouldn't be upset. He would be happy and content. He wouldn't feel alienated. He wouldn't feel like, because let me tell you, he does not have the experience of a black man. Like, he did not go his whole life where people were like, oh, there's a black guy. He got to enjoy being a white dude. What I'm trying to say is, if he doesn't tell people he's black, he would blend in. But the reason he doesn't feel like he fits into society is because his family knew he was illegitimate. His dad, his whole life treated him different, I'm sure. His siblings treated him different. His mom treated him different. I have in my own family, my aunt was illegitimate. Like, and she had a hellish life simply because when you're in a situation like that, even if ethnically you fit in, right? Like my eldest aunt, she ethnically fit in with the Algerian mother and a white father. In fact, she was whiter than most of her siblings, probably because her real dad was super white, whereas my grandpa was like German and English, and he had kind of like brown hair, sandy brown hair, and a darker complexion. I mean, he's white, but like, you know, they're like white people and white people, like the Irish looking people. And she had like a blonde hair, very light eyes, very different from her siblings, who were actually my grandpa's children, because it was his complexion with my grandmother, who was Algerian. So she had a very dark complexion, dark curly hair, very dark eyes. That produced intermediate looking children who have kind of like tan skin, dark eyes, straight hair that is dark brown, you know, or curly, but they looked similar, and the facial features very similar to my grandpa, right? But then here comes my aunt, oldest born, totally different, round face, different personality, light blonde hair, almost blue eyes, lighter skin. So even though ethnically she fit in with the dynamic, everyone knew she wasn't his child. Grandma knew, and she treated her like shit. She got treated so bad. She ran away from home. It affected her whole life. I'm trying to make a case like if you have that same family strife that a lot of people have, even if ethnicity is not a factor, everyone knows you're not really dad's kid. Mom knows, and that's why she treats you different. Rather than blame herself, she blames you that you exist, right? When you have that dynamic, but you're also ethnically significantly different, like the family is white, but you clearly have African American features. What normally you would project onto just your family, like my family rejects me and makes me feel like an outsider. You're more likely to project on society and confuse my racial appearance has oppressed me. And it's in reality that's not the case. Like if you had a loving family, you wouldn't feel that way. If you had a loving father, a loving mother, like I love you, I accept you, you would not feel that way because you just don't have the same experience as a black individual who really is being oppressed for being different. Like you blend in as white. You know what I mean? It's just within your family dynamic. And because if you come from a broken home and you're also racially ambiguous, it's easy to confuse that broken home with society is shit. The Sean King effect. You make a great CIA agent if you have other traits they need, because you could easily be brainwashed like deception is fine, the society is shit, ripping the society up, okay. I don't fit in with the African American community, I don't fit in with the white community, I don't fit in with the Asian community. So, hey, motivation, manipulation is the same thing. You know, you're more easy to criticize versus if you have a strong social identity because your family identity is strong too. You know what I mean? Like people who come from broken homes who are racially ambiguous are easier to brainwash that society is just a hologram. You can do whatever you want, no faith to any group of people. That would not happen if you had a strong family. That would create strong ties to community too. It's like family is the first, then society, right? And people have broken families, but they don't have any social alienation. Oftentimes, people like that, social is the strength they have, like their church or their community, if their family sucks. But that's the issue with racially ambiguous people whose family sucks is their family is not a source of support. They also don't feel a strong sense to any cultural movement or group. They're more likely to feel alienated totally, which in that in that case, the way people who may have a broken family but they have a strong social group that they fit in are less likely to be like, yeah, motivation and manipulation are the same thing. So I think that a real reason they seek out racially ambiguous people is they're easier if they also have this background of malice against their family not being a source of support. They're more likely to also feel alienated from society and therefore more likely to find an epiphany that motivation and manipulation are the same thing. Like, that makes sense to you. It's like anything. Like, I was fat as fuck. I was abused for being fat. A lot of girls who go through ridicule for being fat start to think every problem is because you're fat. And you can get anorexia. And you think you're a winner if you're thin, even if you're starving yourself. And it's obviously not productive. You know? First, there must be problems in the local level. And some other thing that makes you different comes to be the reason. And you can take that thing and do destructive shit with it. Like, that's a lot like if you happen to be racially ambiguous, but your family sucks and is not a source of support, you're more likely to take that and transfer to that other thing. That's also me. Like, my issues were the abuse, my family, and I projected it all onto my weight. That's why this is happening. And I think that's why they look for racially ambiguous people from weak families with weak supports and weak ties, because they're much easier to agree motivation and manipulation are the same thing. They don't have a strong community support to replace and supplement the weak family. Another thing they ask of them is to cut off all ties of everything. Again, you can see how someone like that is more willing to do that. Like, no, don't talk to your parents. Don't talk to your old associates. Break all ties and become us, the CIA. A person who doesn't have strong ties to a community and also a weak family is much more willing to do that versus someone like an African American who has this huge presence in their church and their community, and or somebody with a loving family. Like you're less likely to be wanting to do that. But that's the element of why a racially ambiguous person who also has a fucked up family, like Sean King, can become a hologram because they're less likely. A lot of people. This has no link to ethnicity. A lot of people have a broken home, but people who fit in somewhere in society too, or feel like they do, can supplement that weak family with community support, and they're less likely to be like, yeah, I'm willing to cut all that off. But if you're just alienated, like your family sucks, and because you were racially ambiguous, you never felt like you really fit in with any group, you're more likely to be like, yeah, I'm willing to cut everything off and become the CIA. I don't feel any strong ties to anything, you know? A lot of what I could see is what he confirmed. Like they operate like a cult. They're they completely serve and find external validation from this organization no matter what they're doing. They can another feature he mentioned, but he didn't wasn't aware of it himself, is how they tell themselves everything they do is to protect Americans. But it's obvious with any with ISIS-C, you're not protecting Americans. But they just tell themselves that the way the Nazis told themselves our crimes are for the good of the nation, you know? You're telling me it's to protect Americans to make a fake Islamist group that will absorb Islamic radicals, hurt a bunch of children, and then get so big that American soldiers have to die to tamp it down? You think that protects Americans? Sounds more like you're protecting the elites of Israel, the elites in general. Because you sure as shit aren't protecting Americans who have to go die to stop ISIS now. But they're able to lie to themselves. Everything my higher level agent wants me to do is to protect America. And so that's how they're able to do it because of this cult like disenfranchised personality they have and the brainwashing. It takes months and months to brainwash them into this. And they, the whole while, the higher level agents are clocking, or do you have what it takes? And yeah, it confirmed about a lot of what I could intuit. Like, they're a fucking cult. The lower level agents are completely controlled by the higher level agents. The higher level agents are like a black box question in the sense you're not going to hear an interview from a higher level agent. Just the middling and lower level orbiters who believe the bullshit. They believe everything they're doing is to protect America. They believe it makes sense. Motivation and manipulation are two sides of the same coin. They believe all of this. They're in a cult and they were screened for the right amalgamation of traits: a broken home, no strong ties to any community, cult like thinking, good talk game, but capacity to learn. The perfect cult member for the CIA. And will be so controlled, even with everything you see and everything you know, you still don't realize it was all fake and you're being controlled by higher level agents yourself. Just like you're manipulating people, they're manipulating you. And you're not protecting Americans. You're something like a cop. Like the way cops be like, we do this to serve and protect, and everyone can see. You do this to protect capital. You know what I mean? And they're never able to wake up and realize that. Looking for traits of narcissists, external validation, a blank slate inside. You can totally mold your ethics to serve this cult. You don't have your own ethics. You can't deviate from the external reward, willing to please that cult you're brainwashed into. Just like a full on cult member will do anything for the cult. Everyone's looking at them like, but they are so satisfied because they're getting reward from the higher members in the cult. That is a lot like the lower level, middling level CIA agent. Um, Also, sociopathy, traits for sociopathy. He referred to it as moral flexibility, but anyone can see it's sociopathy. Like, you can do anything for self gain and you find amusement in it, right? And a lot of the things I could intuit being enmeshed in intelligence plot as a prop, like a Yazidi or one of the Epstein girls, I was able to clock about these people, and he basically confirmed, like, yeah, it's a cult. Yeah, there are higher level agents who are like a black box and turn us into cult members. Yeah, they look for narcs who are blank slates and they are able to mold who they are into external validation from this group. Yeah, we look for sociopaths who have high moral flexibility. And I'm just like, yeah, we can totally do whatever, convert whatever we do into protecting America, even when it's obvious that's not what's happening. Like the most brainwashed soldier or cop. Yeah, everything you thought was right. Um, and we also look for racially ambiguous people because they're more likely to have no ties to a community as well if they also happen to have a weak family, and they're more likely to just become this cult. Yeah, all of that's true. Gratifying for me.